nobody really knew the money my mother was making from those numbers.
Wow.
It was. And then they opened up a sandwich shop across the street from a grammar school in Union City. Mm-hmm. Right next to the bar of the guy that had the big dick. I told the story, Willie Vandy. Club 38. It's an appliance store now. It's like an air refrigeration. But in the 50s, they had a sandwich store named the OK. And it was up the block from either Washington School or something in Union City. Then they sold that and bought the bar. The whole time they were doing numbers. But my father had a secret business, the heroin business with these Jews on the Lower East Side. Mm-hmm. Him and a gay guy named Angel would take coke to Connecticut and shit, heroin to Connecticut and shit like that. And that's how they were really making their money.
Wow.
So they had this bar business, but at the same time my father was a committee man. He was a Cuban committee man. He was the first Cuban committee man in Union City.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So that's why when he died, it was such a mystery. They had to get him out before they did an autopsy to reveal the drug use, because the politicos weren't involved on it. So it's kind of fucked up how it all went down. Like, those are the years.
How old do you think she was at this time?
Yeah.
My mom?
Yeah.
30-something. 36 maybe. Because, I was 3. So she died when I was 15. So 48 minus 12 is what?
36.
36. But she was 36 and she picked up. Like, I remember saying to her, why did we move from that house in Jersey? She was like, when somebody dies, you move. That's it. Like, she's like, I didn't want to live in Jersey anyway. I hated Jersey. She wanted to be in New York.
Right.
That era, really, I want to know what happened those years. Like, those are the years that have always intrigued me about her. I still remember the dry cleaner. I still remember her going with her to different banks. Like, let's say she had her own bank, but Felicia had her bank. My mother's bank was in Studio City, but Felicia's bank was in Sherman Oaks. Even though on paper we should be kind of enemies, we're fighting for the same nickel, my mother didn't look at it that way. So there were days I'd go to your bank with my mother, and we'd go over there and you'd be surrounded by 12 guys yelling numbers and writing them on a blackboard, and go get 20 pounds of lobster, some fucking whatever. Let's celebrate. The Norwood, like, we used to go to different banks and see how they ran them. God knows what could have went down. I was 5,
Wow.
But I would see how she would maneuver around men and how, it was like this respect. She was a woman and she was making her own money in this men's world. Mm-hmm. And then when she got the bar, I got to see how guys would treat her at night. Like, she never let us slip up. Like, she was one of those women that always, like, she never let us slip up. Like, it never got to point B. She would fucking nail you on point A, check you so fucking hard that you would just shit your fucking pants. Like, you would just go, okay. And then 20 people would stare you down and go, what were you thinking?
Right.
Like, it was that type of when men came onto her or something. And I like that. I like that style of she would just shut that shit down. Like, I still remember the different, like, one night this guy hit me because I said something to him, and she found out that he kicked me. And my mom asked me, did he really fucking kick you? I go, yeah, but I called him like a fucking half a fag or something. She goes, that don't mean nothing. He can't be kicking no son of mine. And she picked up the phone, and she was saying shit to this guy that, she goes, before you hit my son, this is what you need to do. You need to go get a guy to put a big dick up your ass and fuck you. And then you carry that kid for 9 months. And then you spit it out of your fucking pussy, you little miserable motherfucker. Don't let me see you again. I mean, she was just going off on this guy. She scared the shit out of this guy. This guy, like, closed his mechanic shop for like 4 days until fucking...
The coast was clear?
Right.
Yeah, until they smoothed it out. Like, it was just a weird thing to see.
Right. But when she was younger and lived in Cuba, how did she go to the United States the first time?
It was like going to Atlantic City. There was no TSA.
Right.
You remember flying in the 80s?
Oh, when I
Do you
was...
remember flying? I mean, explain to people who flying in the 80s
When
was.
I was at the beginning of my career flying quite a bit, and you would always try to get the cheapest ticket. So there was this guy that had his office, travel agent, down by the airport.
Right down the corner.
And this guy, you would fly under 106 different names because he would finagle, like when people couldn't get when they couldn't make the flight, blah, 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 they would like source it to him. So you would pay like, $100 or 100.
And fly on the Syatt.
Yeah, you would fly. And then there were celebrities that did it too. And then it stopped because one celebrity comic, I can't remember who it was, like Jackie Mason or something like that. Someone recognized that his name didn't match his ticket. I don't know if it was Jackie Mason, but it was something like that. And then that's when things started to change when that came in. But it was awesome because you could get the cheapest tickets.
But I still remember going to an airport and going, what time's the next flight? Like, there was no online, Lee. Like, hold on, what's the next flight to Vegas? Tick, 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 tick. Burbank, Vegas. There's none of that.
Yeah.
You had to, like, go on the Yellow Pages and call the 800 line and, hi, this is Mel. What can I'd like to go to Florida. I'm flying out of Burbank. What time? 8 a.m. Well, what do you got? And they tell you, and it's like, how do you pay for it? Well, you pay for it 2 hours before flight time.
Yes,
and you would go down to the airport, Lee, with a cash of money or a check or a credit card, Diners Club. That's what you traveled under. And you could pay. There was no ID, Lee. I could go to an airport and go, what's your name? Pablo Escobar. Okay, your ticket's $300, Mr. Escobar. Pay him, and that was it. They took your word for it. How do you spell Escobar? That's it. There was no TSA. There was a guy with a fucking thing that you went through, and he went, that's it.
Or how about no cell phones? How about that? Traveling with no cell phones. How about that? Remember that?
I remember that. I'm not that young. I still remember, like, when I was a kid, my brother and I we had bikes, and we were old enough to go away from the house, and we didn't have a cell phone. We had, my mom got, like, these long-range walkie-talkies that would go, like, 5 or 6 miles, and I remember carrying those around.
Yeah.
But well, growing up, I had silverware with American Airlines on it, like actual silverware that my dad or mom must have taken off the flight or something. Like, they had actual silverware for meals.
No, they gave you... Flighting was completely different. I told you, I still remember going into an airplane bathroom, and there would be perfumes. And hand creams for free. There were planes that were 2-deckers. They were double-decker planes. So first class was upstairs. There was a guy playing the piano. And there'd be a fucking... it was crazy.
A guy playing a piano.
Even if you watch the movie with De Niro and that guy that he has to take him cross country, Midnight Run. Remember? They had to go upstairs.
Yeah.
Planes were double-deckers, Lee. And first class was upstairs, and there was a pig with an apple in its mouth. And you'd come over and take a piece of the pig and shit.
Wow. Have you ever been on a plane where they're moving a convict from one city to the other? So that is weird. And then one time that happened to me, but they were sitting right behind me, but it was it's like so paranoid,
I have been on a plane.
They put those people on regular, like, I've always heard Joey joke about that when you do Expedia or something, but they don't have like regular planes for criminals?
It's like they have a Con Air, but for quick trials and shit like that, like for witness relocated guys. Like, let's say you're a witness relocated guy and you're in Indiana, but your court case is in New York. They won't fly you direct. They'll fly you from Indiana to Michigan, from Michigan to San Francisco. Then you stay a day and you go from San Francisco to Oklahoma. Then Oklahoma to New York City. I got the whole lowdown. FBI guy one time.
And why do they do that?
Just so nobody's on your tail. You don't know where you're going. It's so weird. When you're in the witness relocation plan, you don't know where you're going to an hour before you're leaving. When they hand you your ticket and your dossier of what school your son's going to go to, and what's his name going to be, and
That sounds terrible. Like, the only I saw it. I just watched My Name Is Earl, so I saw them go through it. I can't imagine just being like, "Yeah, you're moving to Nebraska, and your name's Joe now, and you can't tell anybody. You can't contact anybody."
Do you know anyone that ever went under the witness protection program?
Salubats.
Yeah.
Salubats. I met him here in Studio City. He lived around the corner from your house.
Oh, really?
And it was very interesting because you grow up, with this code that you'll never snitch, you'll never rat. I've never ratted. I don't believe, I don't know. But it's crazy when you actually rat. Like, I always want to know the reasons, and I like to figure them out. With Sal Lubatz, it's a very interesting story. He was going to get 20 years for heroin. He could have done the 20 years standing on his head. Sal is fucking 78, and he just got married a month ago. Mm-hmm. Like, he's one of those guys. He looks great. He's in great shape. But what people don't know about Sal was that when Sal was going through all that shit with John Gotti, he had 2 sons that were fucking college, heavy-duty prospect. Like, they were in high school, and fucking colleges were already looking at these 2 guys.
Oh, really?
Like, big time. So, here's the story. When he got flipped, he thought about his kids. And he ratted on John Gotti, and he took his kids to Texas and changed their names. And, it took the government a lot because they were looking for the boys. Mm-hmm. That's how Gotti was going to find them, through the boys. So they had to switch their names and put them in different high schools in different fucking parts of Texas. And guess what? They both got scholarships to Division I schools.
Oh, really?
Fuck yeah.
So they still played?
One primarily, the University of Colorado in Boulder.
Oh, really?
So all those years when I was living in Boulder, Sal Lubatz was up the corner in North Boulder.
Yeah.
That's what we hit off after we met. Son went, and then he played pro football. So now, when I just spoke to Sal a week ago, he's in Vegas, and he got approached by a writer now, and he's got a little deal. Mm-hmm. Paramount or somebody threw him a little deal, and they're going to write the story of his sons.
So, so when do you get to leave the witness protection program?
When do you get to leave?
Yeah, if he's telling you this and we're talking about
when
it,
when I met him, he was already gone from the program. He still had contact with the handlers. Mm-hmm. We shot a horrible movie called The Sinatra Club, and when I got to the set, not only was the FBI there, but Henry Hill was there, drunk. He was just a fucking loser. Fuck.
Really?
Like, when you met Henry Hill is like 70% of the people in Hollywood. They did something one time, but they blew it up into something else. You could tell Henry Hill was just a half a mutt, and even Sal said to me, he goes, one time when I first got into the program, I got a job working as an apartment building manager, and I got a hold of Henry. Henry lived in Venice or the Valley or whatever, and I invited him over, and when we were drinking coffee, he saw the apartment keys to all the apartments, and he's like, why don't we rob the apartments? He goes, Henry, you're 50-something fucking years old.
Really?
Henry was still he was just a fucking thug that got to tell his story first. Mm-hmm. Then a bunch of people wrote their books saying that guy was crazy. Right. But Scorsese bought them all, so nobody could deter from his story. Primarily the daughter. Henry Hill's daughter wrote a great book, and she was like, how can you believe a guy that was high? He married, listen, Henry Hill was so crazy. There's a part in My Blue Heaven where Steve Martin goes into he's a mafia guy. Have you ever seen that movie?
Right.
Great, brilliant movie. But there's a scene where he calls his handler and he goes, hey, Vinny, I got married. Say hello. And he goes, but Vinny, you're already married. He goes, don't worry, I married her under my other name. Henry Hill at one time was married to his wife in the same house in Washington State. He was married to his wife, and she lived in the building, in the basement, and he was married to a young chick upstairs under his witness relocation name. And that's what he told his wife. Because what are you talking about? It's not cheating. I married her under my witness name. But in his criminal fucking demented, alcoholic, cocaine mind, he thought that was fine.
So did the 2 women know about each other and coexisted?
Yeah, they lived in the same house, and then, shit turned over. Then he got busted in Washington, and then all this shit went down. But it's like the most interesting guy in the world to me the last 20 years. Like, I find a lot of people interesting. Hemingway is interesting. But I like when somebody makes something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Those are the people that impress the fuck out of me, whether it's a woman with a Avon company or something, whatever. Is a guy, he just got out of jail. Sammy the Bull just got out of jail. I would pay to have him on the podcast, to pick his business mind apart, and to pick after 30 years why he ratted. And I guarantee that he'd say that I'd write down why